A man from Peru decided to visit America even though he didn't speak any English. Soon after arriving, he wandered into a department store eager to buy some essentials. He found his way to the menswear section where a young salesgirl approached him. "Quiero calcetines," he said. "I want socks." The salesgirl smiled but looked confused. "I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, but we have some very nice suits over here." No quiero trajes, quiero calcetines," he repeated. "No, I don't want suits. I want socks." "Well, these shirts are on sale this week," she offered. No quiero camisas, quiero calcetines." "No, I don't want shirts. I want socks." She still didn't get it. "Oh, maybe you'd like some pants?" Frustrated, he shook his head. No quiero pantalones, quiero calcetines." "No, I don't want pants. I want socks." As they passed the underwear section, the man suddenly spotted a display of socks and lit up with excitement. He grabbed a pair, held them up, and exclaimed, "Eso sí que es! Now that's it." The salesgirl threw her hands in the air. "Then why didn't you just spell it in the first place?" A duck waddles into a pub, hops onto a stool, and says, "I'll have a pint and a ham sandwich, please." The barman stares. "Hang on, you're a duck." "Glad to see your eyes work," the duck replies. "And you talk?" the barman exclaims. "Glad to see your ears work, too. Now, about that beer." Shaking his head, the barman pours the pint. "Sorry, mate, we don't get many ducks in here." "What brings you round?" "I'm working on the building site across the road," says the duck. This routine goes on for 2 weeks. Beer, sandwich, chat, leave. Then one day the circus rolls into town. The ringleader stops by for a drink, and the barman gets an idea. "Hey, you're with the circus, right? I know a duck who talks, drinks beer. He'd be perfect for your show." "Sounds amazing," says the ringleader. "Tell him to call me." The next day, the barman excitedly tells the duck, "Mate, I've got you a top job. Great money." "Yeah," says the duck. "Doing what?" "At the circus." "The circus?" The duck frowns. "Yeah, you know, the big tent, animals, acrobats." "The big canvas roof with the hole in the middle?" the duck asks. "Exactly." The duck pauses, looking puzzled. "What the heck would they want with a plasterer?" A man boards a plane and is surprised to find a parrot strapped into the seat next to him. Once they're in the air, the stewardess comes around and the man politely asks for a coffee. The parrot, on the other hand, squawks, "And get me a bloody whiskey, you moron!" The startled stewardess hesitates but soon returns with a whiskey for the parrot, forgetting the coffee. The man gently reminds her, but before she can respond, the parrot drains its glass and screeches, "And bring me another whiskey while you're at it, idiot." Flustered, the stewardess rushes off and returns with another whiskey, but still no coffee. Frustrated, the man decides to take a page from the parrot's book. "I've asked you twice for a coffee, moron. Now get it before I give you a slap." Within seconds, 2 burly air marshals storm in, grab both the man and the parrot, drag them to the emergency exit, and throw them out of the plane. As they plummet through the sky, the parrot turns to the man and says, "You know, for someone who can't fly, you've got a big mouth." A bear, a moose, a fox, a wolf, and a snail were playing cards around a table when the bear let out a low growl. "Guys, I'm starving. Someone go grab some chocolate or something." The moose shrugged and nodded at the fox, who slammed his paw on the table. "Why me? Let the wolf do it." Before an argument could break out, the snail raised a tiny feeler. Guys, no need to fight. I'll go." The bear grinned, handed the snail some crumpled-up cash, and said, "Thanks, buddy, and grab something to drink, too." The snail gave a confident wink, took the money, and slowly made his way to the door. Half an hour passed, then an hour, then an hour and a half. At last, the bear slammed his cards down. "You know what? I think that little bastard took the money and ran." From near the door, a tiny but furious voice yelled, "If you're gonna start insulting me, I'm not going at all." There was once a cruel king who executed people on a whim. One day, a minister gave him bad advice, and the king, furious, ordered him to be thrown to his vicious, ravenous guard dogs. The minister fell to his knees. "Your Majesty, I have served you faithfully for 10 years, and this is my reward?" The king was unmoved. "At least grant me 10 days before my execution," the minister pleaded. Curious but still bloodthirsty, the king agreed. For the next 10 days, the minister visited the royal kennels, feeding the dogs, grooming them, caring for them, and earning their trust. When the time came, the king ordered him thrown to the beasts, but instead of attacking, the dogs wagged their tails, licked his feet, and played with him like an old friend. The king was stunned. "What happened to my vicious dogs?" The minister calmly replied, "I served these dogs for only 10 days, and they did not forget my kindness. I served you for 10 years, and you forgot at my first mistake." The king fell silent, deep in thought. The next day he replaced the dog with crocodiles. A circus manager is tidying his office when a scrawny little guy walks in. "You the boss?" the guy asks. "Yeah," the manager grunts. "What do you want?" "I want to join the circus. I've got an act." The manager leans back. "Oh yeah, let's see it." The little guy walks to the center pole and starts climbing. Higher and higher he goes, past the trapezes up to the very peak of the big top. Then he takes a deep breath and leaps. Flapping his arms like mad, he soars through the air. He loops around the tent, weaves through the trapezes, and does dazzling mid-air spins. Finally, he nosedives toward the ground, flapping wildly, then lands gracefully right next to the manager. "Well," he says, grinning, "what do you think?" The manager crosses his arms, unimpressed. "That's it, bird imitations." Two prawns, Justin and Christian, were swimming in the sea, constantly dodging hungry sharks. One day, Justin had enough. "I'm sick of being a prawn. I wish I were a shark. Then I wouldn't have to live in fear." Suddenly, in a flash of light, a mysterious cod appeared. "Your wish is granted," the cod declared. And just like that, Justin transformed into a fearsome shark. Christian, terrified, bolted away, leaving Justin alone. At first, Justin relished his power, but soon he realized none of his old friends would come near him. They all swam away, fearing he'd eat them. His new life was powerful, but lonely. After weeks of isolation, Justin regretted his wish. One day he spotted the mysterious cod again and pleaded, "Please change me back. I miss my old life." The cod granted his request, and Justin was a prawn once more. Overjoyed, he rushed to Christian's home and knocked on the coral gate. "Christian, it's me, Justin. I've changed. Come out and see me." From inside, Christian shouted back, "No way! You're a shark, and I'm not falling for that trick!" Justin called out, "No, really, I'm not a shark anymore. That was the old me. I've changed. I've found cod. I'm a prawn again, Christian." A farmer got a new rooster for his hens, and the old rooster, worried about being replaced, came up with a cunning plan. He strutted up to the young rival and said, "All right, let's settle this. 1 lap around the farmhouse. If you win, I leave. If I win, you go." The young rooster, full of confidence, scoffed. "Easy win. You're on—" "Hold on," the old rooster added. "Since I'm older, you have to give me a head start. Let me get halfway around before you take off." The young rooster smirked. "Fine, you'll need all the help you can get." The race began. The old rooster took off, huffing and puffing by the halfway mark. Then the young rooster exploded forward, rapidly closing the gap. By the time the old rooster reached 3/4 of the way, he was wheezing, barely hanging on. Meanwhile, the young rooster was right behind him, ready to overtake. Bam! A shotgun blast rang out, and the young rooster collapsed in a heap of feathers. The farmer shook his head. "Darn it, 3rd gay rooster this month." A woman went to her parish priest in distress. "Father, I have a problem. I have 2 female parrots, and all they ever say is, 'Hi, we're prostitutes. Do you want to have some fun?'" The priest gasped. "That's shocking." She nodded. "I know. I don't know what to do." The priest thought for a moment and said, "I may have a solution. I have 2 male parrots who spend their days praying and reading the Bible. Bring your parrots over and we'll put them in the cage with mine. Surely my parrots will set them on the right path." "Oh, Father, that's a wonderful idea," she said, relieved. The next day she arrived at the priest's house. Inside the cage she saw his 2 male parrots clutching rosary beads, deep in prayer. Impressed, she placed her female parrots inside. Seconds later, the female parrots chirped in unison, "Hi, we're prostitutes. Do you want to have some fun?" Stunned silence. Then one male parrot slowly turned to the other and said, "Put the beads away, Francis. Our prayers have been answered." Whitey was in the fertilized egg business. He had hundreds of young hens called pullets and about 10 roosters whose sole job was, well, Whitey was a stickler for efficiency. He kept meticulous records, and any rooster that didn't perform ended up in the soup pot. But tracking their productivity took up too much of his time, so Whitey got clever. He attached tiny bells to each rooster, each with a different tone, so he could monitor their performance just by listening from his porch. Genius! His favorite rooster was old Brewster, a fine specimen of a bird. But one morning, Whitey noticed something odd. Brewster's bell wasn't ringing at all. Curious, Whitey went to check. The other roosters were running after the pullets, bells jingling wildly as the hens darted away. But Brewster, he was different. To Whitey's amazement, Brewster had figured it out. He was holding his bell in his beak, sneaking up on the pullets in complete silence, getting the job done without a single jingle. Whitey was so proud he entered Brewster in the county fair, and the wily old rooster became an overnight sensation. The judges were so impressed they awarded him not just the Nobel Peace Prize, but also the Pulitzer Prize. A woman rushed into a veterinary clinic carrying her limp pet duck. She laid him gently on the examination table, her eyes filled with worry. The vet pulled out his stethoscope, listened carefully to the duck's chest, and after a moment, he shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your duck, Cuddles, has passed away." The woman gasped. "Are you sure? He might just be in a coma or something." The vet sighed and left the room. A moment later, he returned with a Labrador retriever. The dog stood on his hind legs, placed his front paws on the table, and sniffed the duck from beak to tail. Then he looked up at the vet, shook his head, and whimpered. The vet patted the dog and let him out. A minute later, he came back with a cat. The cat jumped onto the table, delicately sniffed the duck, sat back, shook its head, and let out a soft meow before hopping down and walking out. The vet turned to the woman and said, "I'm sorry, but as I said, this is definitely a dead duck." He walked over to his computer, tapped a few keys, and handed the woman a bill. $150? She cried. "Just to tell me my duck is dead?" The vet shrugged. "If you just taken my word for it, it would have been $20. But with the lab report and the CAT scan, it's $150. 3 bulls were standing in the pasture when they overheard the rancher was bringing in a new bull. The first bull snorted, "I've been here 5 years, I have 100 cows, and I'm not giving up a single one to some newcomer." The second bull huffed, "I've been here 3 years and worked hard for my 50 cows. No way I'm sharing." The third bull, the youngest, stomped his hoof. "I've only been here a year, and you two barely let me have 10 cows. But those 10 are mine, and I'm not giving them up." Just then an 18-wheeler pulled into the pasture. The ground shook as the biggest bull they had ever seen stepped off the trailer. 4,700 pounds of pure muscle. With every step, the steel ramp groaned under his weight. The first bull gulped. I suppose I can spare a few cows for our new friend." The second bull stammered, Yeah, I think I have more than I can handle anyway." They turned to the third bull, who was furiously pawing the dirt, shaking his head and snorting like mad. The first bull whispered, "Son, don't be stupid. Just give up your cows and live to tell the tale." The third bull snorted, "Hell, he can have all my cows. I just want to make sure he knows I'm a bull." A man loses his thesaurus, which he uses all the time. He searches the house from top to bottom, twice, but it's nowhere to be found. Frustrated, he decides to ask his family. First, he goes to his daughter, who loves books. "Did you take my thesaurus?" he asks. "I didn't take it," she says. "I've just been reading. Maybe ask my brother. He always climbs on stuff. Maybe he took it to stand on." So the man finds his son, who's playing video games. "Did you take my thesaurus?" "Of course not," the son scoffs. "I hate reading. Ask Mom. She might know." The man looks for his wife, but she's nowhere to be found. Now he's really frustrated. Finally, he heads out to the stables, but there's no one there, just their horse. With a sigh, he mutters, I don't suppose you know where my thesaurus is. The horse looks at him, shrugs, and says, Nope. Oops, I mean nay. In a lively classroom, the teacher stood at the front and asked, All right, class, who can tell me which milk is the strongest? Johnny raised his hand confidently. That's easy, madam. The milk from an 18-year-old girl. The teacher, raising an eyebrow, asked, And why do you think that, Johnny? Johnny grinned and replied, Because one sip of that milk, and even the weakest part of a man's body suddenly stands strong. A mouse was sitting at a bar enjoying a drink when a stunning giraffe walked in and took a seat at the end of the counter. The mouse's whiskers twitched with excitement. Feeling bold, he ordered her a drink. One drink led to another, and soon he slid down beside her, chatting her up over a few more rounds. Eventually, they left together. The next day, the mouse staggered back into the bar, barely able to climb onto his stool. His whiskers were bent, his tail was crooked, and he looked completely wrecked. The bartender raised an eyebrow. Whoa, what happened? How'd it go last night? The mouse let out a long, exhausted sigh. Man, that was the best night of my life. Then why do you look like hell? The mouse wiped his brow and groaned. Between the kissing and the love-making, I must have run 10 miles. A TV crew visits a 100-year-old man living alone in a cabin deep in the woods. When they arrive, they find him chopping wood and carrying logs like a man half his age. Amazed by his health and energy, they ask, What's your secret? The old man nods and begins his story. 70 years ago, a terrible blizzard hit out of nowhere. It had been a mild winter, just some light snow, when suddenly the wind howled and the storm became fierce. I stepped outside to call my dog when I spotted a faint light in the woods. Someone was out there, lost. I called out, hoping they'd hear me. Sure enough, the light grew closer until a man holding a flashlight emerged, barely standing. I rushed to help him inside before we both got stranded. My dog ran in right behind us, and I struggled to shut the door against the raging wind. The poor fellow was freezing and in shock. I helped him out of his soaked coat and boots, sat him by the fire, and poured us both a glass of whiskey to warm up. I had a pot of stew on the stove, so we shared a meal. He kept thanking me, saying he thought he was a dead man until he heard my voice and found his way to safety. When we finished eating, we turned in for the night. But I only had one bed, so we had to share. No big deal, we figured. It was bitterly cold, and body heat would keep us warm. Well, one thing led to another, and we started touching, then kissing, then making love. The next morning, the storm had passed. After breakfast, he put on his jacket, gathered his things, and said he had to go. His wife and 3 kids were waiting for him. Before leaving, he gave me the juiciest kiss on the cheek and walked out the door. I watched him disappear into the snow and realized I never even asked his name. And that was the last time I ever saw him. The TV crew sits in stunned silence. After a long pause, one of them clears his throat and says, no, we meant your secret to long and healthy life. Oh, that? The old man chuckles. Clean air, regular exercise, healthy food, no stress. You know, that kind of stuff. A man sits at a bar after work looking stressed. The bartender asks, Rough day? The man sighs. I'm not sleeping well. I keep having nightmares about a monster under my bed, but I'm too embarrassed to see a shrink. A nearby patron overhears and chimes in. I'm actually a psychiatrist. I can help. These are just dreams, nothing to fear. A few sessions and you'll be sleeping like a baby. Here's my card. Give me a call. A few weeks later, the psychiatrist sees the man back at the bar looking relaxed. Hey, I never heard from you. How are the nightmares? Oh, things are great, the man says. The bartender helped me. The psychiatrist frowns. The bartender? You needed professional therapy. What could he have possibly done that I couldn't? The man shrugs. He told me to saw the legs off my bed. A very drunk woman stumbles into a bar and slurs, I'll have a whiskey sour. The bartender shakes his head. Sorry, ma'am. You've had too much. I can't serve you. She scowls but wobbles out the front door. A few minutes later, she staggers in through the side entrance. Barkeep, give me a gin and ginger. The bartender sighs. Ma'am, I just told you I can't serve you. Let me call you a cab. She blinks at him, confused, then stumbles out again. A few minutes later, she bursts through the front door once more. "Blue motorcycle, now!" Now fed up, the bartender snaps. "Ma'am, if you don't let me call you a cab, I'll have to call the police." The woman squints at him through bleary eyes and mutters, "How many damn bars do you work at?" As Josh strolled down the street, he spotted his buddy Michael hurrying along, clutching several shopping bags and looking frazzled. "Hey, Michael, you all right? You seem a little jumpy." Michael set the bags down with a sigh. "Yeah, I just came from that new high-tech supermarket over in the industrial district." "Oh yeah, I heard it's amazing. What's it like?" Michael hesitated, then launched into an enthusiastic description. "Well, it's all about the authentic shopping experience. In the dairy section, you hear cows mooing and even smell the barn. Over in the egg aisle, chickens cluck overhead from a suspended coop. In the produce section, you can actually hear farmers chatting in the fields and smell fresh soil in the air." "Wow, that sounds incredible," Josh exclaimed. Michael grimaced. "Yeah, in theory. But this is the last time I'm buying toilet paper there." I want to share a personal experience about drinking and driving, one that might save you the cost and embarrassment of a DWI. As you know, people sometimes have unexpected run-ins with the authorities, often on the way home after a social session with family or friends. Well, recently, it happened to me. I was out at a party enjoying more than a few margaritas, plus a bottle of rather lovely red wine. The event was at a fantastic Italian restaurant, and while I felt relaxed, I also had enough sense to know I was probably over the limit. That's when I did something I've never done before. I took a taxi home. On the way, we hit a police roadblock, but since it was a taxi, they just waved us through, and I arrived home safely without incident. That's when it really hit me. Those roadblocks can be anywhere. I was so lucky I chose to take a taxi. The real surprise? I had never driven a taxi before. I have no idea where I got it, and now that it's in my garage, I'm not sure what to do with it. If you want to borrow it, let me know. A newlywed couple had only been married for 2 weeks. The husband, though deeply in love, was itching to go out with his old buddies. So he turned to his wife and said, "Honey, I'll be right back." "Where are you going, Coochie Coo?" she asked sweetly. "Just to the bar, pretty face? Just for a beer?" The wife smiled. "You want a beer, my love?" She walked over to the fridge and opened it, revealing 25 different brands from 12 different countries: Germany, Holland, Japan, India, you name it. The husband frozen. "Yeah, lollipop, but at the bar, they have frozen glasses." Before he could finish, she whipped open the freezer and pulled out a giant frosty mug, so cold she shivered just holding it. "You want a frozen glass, puppy face?" The husband, now looking a little pale, tried again. "Well, yes, but at the bar, they have hors d'oeuvres." The wife beamed. "You want hors d'oeuvres, Poochie Poo?" She opened the oven and pulled out 5 different appetizers: chicken wings, pigs in blankets, mushroom caps, pork strips, and more. The husband was sweating now. But, my sweet honey, at the bar, you know, there's swearing, dirty words, and all that." The wife's smile widened. "Oh, you want dirty words, sweetie pie?" She leaned in close and hissed, "Drink your bloody beer in your darn frozen mug and eat your stupid snacks because you're married now and you aren't going anywhere. Got it, moron?" A guy walks into a bar with his dog and says, "I'll have a scotch and water, and my dog will have a whiskey sour." The bartender frowns. "Sorry, we don't allow animals in here." The dog sighs. "Hey, I'm tired of being discriminated against. Just give me a drink." The bartender scoffs. "Oh no, not another ventriloquist with the old talking dog trick. Both of you, get out." No, this isn't a trick, I swear," the guy insists. "Tell you what, I'll step outside, take a walk around the block, and you can talk to Gizmo yourself." The man leaves, and the bartender watches as he turns the corner. The dog clears his throat. "So, about that whiskey sour." The bartender's jaw drops. "Holy hell. All right, it's on the house. But hey, do me a favor. My wife works next door at the cafe. Go in there, order a coffee, and it'll make her day. Here's $10. Keep the change." "Deal," says the dog, taking the money and heading out. 10 minutes pass. No dog. The owner returns and asks, "Where's Gizmo?" Both of them rush outside to check. As they approach the cafe, they spot Gizmo in the alley going at it hot and heavy with a French poodle. The owner shouts, "Gizmo, what the hell are you doing? You've never done this before." The dog shrugs. "Well, I've never had any money before." A guy walks into a bar and notices a huge jar on the counter, stuffed with $10 bills. He estimates there must be over $10,000 inside. Curious, he asks the bartender, "What's with all the cash?" The bartender grins. "Simple. You pay $10, and if you pass 3 tests, you win all the money in the jar, plus the keys to a brand new Lexus." The guy's interest peaks. "All right, what are the 3 tests?" No spoilers," the bartender says. "You gotta pay first. Those are the rules." The guy hesitates, but after some thought, he hands over $10. The bartender drops it into the jar and leans in. "Here's what you have to do. Drink a whole quart of tequila in under a minute, without making a face. Out back, there's a pit bull with a rotten tooth. You have to pull it out with your bare hands. Upstairs, there's a 90-year-old woman who's never been with a man. You have to take care of that situation." The guy's jaw drops. "What? No way! That's insane!" He shakes his head and orders a beer. But as the night goes on and the drinks keep flowing, his confidence starts to grow. After a few too many, he slams his glass down. "Screw it! Where's the damn tequila?" The bartender hands him a bottle, and he chugs the whole thing in under a minute. Tears stream down his face. His whole body shudders, but he doesn't make a face. The bar erupts in cheers. Next, he stumbles out back to the pit bull. For the next few minutes, the bar is filled with growling, snarling, yelping, screaming, and crashing. Absolute chaos. Then, silence. The patrons exchange nervous glances. "Oh, no! He's dead!" But suddenly the guy staggers back inside. His shirt is ripped. He's bleeding. He has scratches all over. But he's alive. He wipes his face, gulps down some air, and slurs. "All right, now where's that old lady with the bad tooth?" A police officer was conducting a routine patrol outside a bar in the outback. As last call wrapped up, he noticed a severely intoxicated man stumble out the door. The man teetered around the parking lot, fumbling in his pockets and trying his keys on 5 different cars before finally locating his own. He collapsed into the driver's seat and sat there for a while, seemingly gathering himself. Meanwhile, other patrons left the bar, got into their cars, and drove off. The officer watched patiently. After a few minutes, the man started his car but didn't go anywhere. Instead, he turned the windshield wipers on and off. Despite it being a clear, dry night, flicked the blinkers on and off, honked the horn randomly, switched the headlights on and off, inched forward a few centimeters, then reversed a little. By now, nearly all the other cars had left the lot. Only once his was the last car remaining did he finally pull out and slowly drive down the road. That was the officer's cue. Flashing his lights, he pulled the man over and administered a breathalyzer test, only to find a reading of 0.00. Baffled, the officer frowned. "This thing must be broken. I'm going to need you to come down to the station." The man grinned proudly. "I doubt it, officer. Tonight, I'm the designated decoy." Jack wakes up with a massive hangover after his company's Christmas party. He's not usually much of a drinker, but last night, those festive cocktails went down way too easily. He has fuzzy memories, being loud, maybe yelling at his wife. Yeah, this was not going to be a good morning. He forces his eyes open and sees 2 aspirin and a glass of water on the nightstand. Next to them, a single red rose. Jack sits up confused. His clothes are laid out, freshly pressed. The room is immaculate. Then he stumbles into the bathroom and freezes. A huge black eye stares back at him from the mirror. That's when he notices a note taped to the mirror, written in red lipstick, decorated with hearts and a kiss mark. "Good morning, my love. Breakfast is on the stove. I went out to get groceries so I can make your favorite dinner tonight. Love you, Jillian." Jack, now completely baffled, shuffles to the kitchen. Sure enough, hot breakfast, steaming coffee, morning newspaper, all waiting for him. His son is at the table eating. Jack groans and asks, "Son, What exactly happened last night? His son chews for a moment and replies, Well, you came home after 3 a.m., completely hammered. You fell over the coffee table and broke it, threw up in the hallway, and got that black eye when you ran into the door. Jack winces. Okay, so why is everything so perfect? Why do I have a rose and breakfast waiting for me? His son shrugs. I don't know, but after Mom dragged you to the bedroom and tried to take your pants off, you screamed, Leave me alone, I'm married!